Dan Wootton coming up, but Darren Grimes is tonight's outsider. Now, you know, we talk a lot about statistics on this show, but here's one I'm struggling to get my head around. More than 400 churches have closed in a decade. According to Church of England data, 423 were shut down between 2010 and 2019, threatening the future of parishes and many people's way of life. This shocking figure has got precious little coverage in the mainstream media, but I want to give it a platform. So, Darren Grimes joins me now. And Darren, once we lose these incredible parts of our heritage, we'll never get them back, will we?
No, I think that's exactly right. And I mean, if we think about all of the depressing aspects of the pandemic of the past 2 years, I think, Dan, what the Church of England's response, frankly, has been one of them. I think there was that refusal, if you remember, where priests were unable to actually minister to the dying in hospitals because the church vetoed it, and far too quickly did they shut their doors. So don't get me wrong, I fully understand why people aren't particularly enamoured by our established church at the moment. And I think Archbishop Welby, at a moment when the nation needed spiritual direction more than perhaps it has done since the war, he wasn't there either. A bit like the National Trust, Dan, I think our established church has been found sorely wanting. So I'm not surprised that people aren't turning up to put their bums on seats in our churches in large numbers. But for me, it goes beyond that. For me, it goes beyond a belief in God. For me, it's about preserving that inheritance that we've been given in the form of our churches, and in that fundamental principle there, that there should be a church in every parish, right? There's one church round the corner from me, for example, where for over 900 years, there has been a church on that site. So you think of all of the funerals, you think of all of the christenings, you think of all of the things that have happened in that church, people seeking comfort at some of the hardest times in their life, like I have done in the past. And you might have viewers, Dan, saying, oh God, Dan, why have you got Darren on ranting about this? The God Squad, here we go. But I think actually, if you think about these beautiful old buildings and think about losing them, this is about preserving our cultural inheritance, because once it's gone, it won't return easily, right? As I say, 900 years of history on that site there.
And Darren, tell me a little bit about your personal story, because I've been teasing it throughout the show. You weren't someone who was always very religious. You found God on Twitter.
Absolutely, yes. I followed a priest called Father Marcus Walker, who you should all follow. He's a great tweeter. And during a very difficult time of my life, when I was against the Electoral Commission in court, fighting for our vote for Brexit, I found myself feeling like an ant under a very large state taxpayer-funded boot. And a belief in my faith, in attending church, really, really did help. I went along to one Ash Wednesday service, and that was it for me. And I think for a lot of people, if you've not tried it before, give it a try, because it's a sort of use 'em or lose 'em when it comes to our
yes, I was going to say, is that all we can do, Darren? I mean, people who are religious in the past, like me, christened Catholic, not practicing, do we need to turn up more? Is that what your rallying cry is tonight?
It would be. That's just one of them. I think there are other movements within the Church of England itself where people are standing up to Archbishop Welby and others and actually saying, look, you need to defend this. If the church isn't there to defend our churches, then who the hell is going to be, right? It strikes me that Her Majesty the Queen, as head of the Church of England, is the only one actually doing a pretty decent job of making the case at the moment, especially during the pandemic. But you've got to just think, whether we like it or not, Dan, whether you're an atheist, an agnostic, or a believer, Christianity has been at the very heart of our values, of who we are as a people here in Britain. Not just here in Britain, actually, here in many Commonwealth countries. The very bedrock of our society, our moral standards, everything that we hold dear, the values of the Enlightenment. People like Adam Smith, right? These people were staunch believers, and that's what drove them to actually proselytize and get forward and say, actually, the liberty of man comes from God, not from the rights of a divine ruler like the king or queen. And those sort of values, they go far beyond Christianity. They go far beyond these things. And our churches are the symbols of these things. So I say, if you value these ancient buildings, if you value what has been built for generation after generation, then you've got to start using these places. Go visit your local church, right? And you will be welcomed. I strongly advise you, you will be welcomed with open arms, as I was back when I first, sort of ventured into a church, not quite knowing whether I was coming or going. But just get out there and try it. That's all I'm saying to you. Because the Save the Parish network can only do so much, right? It comes down fundamentally to us doing it more for ourselves, because it goes back to that fundamental principle of use them or lose them when it comes to our church.
Darren Grimes, very well put. Thank you for being here as tonight's outsider.